Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Subnet Show. I am your host, Gabriel Cardona. I'm coming to you live and direct from the beautiful city of Rome, which you can see this great picture I took today. It is absolutely great to be back at the Subnet Show. I've been cruising across Europe with my mother after the Barcelona Summit, and I have been absolutely jazzed with all the stuff that's happening and really looking forward to getting back into the Avalanche ecosystem, which I'll be back in San Francisco early next week. So it's great to touch bases with everybody again. And I'm joined as always by the healthy co-host, the man with the most cats in crypto, Connor Daly. What is up, my friend?
Healthier.
Healthier.
Yeah, so I for those of you who don't know yet, our apologies that this is the first episode of the Subnet Show in a couple of weeks. So I've had COVID for the last week plus at this point. Still have it, unfortunately, but I'm more of a functioning human being right now. And we've also just been traveling and doing some. We did a live episode 2 weeks ago, and we haven't gotten the video back from the production team. As soon as we have that, we're going to post that live for you guys. So really, regular schedule, should be back on track, starting this week. And we have got some good guests lined up. We're going to talk a lot about Avalanche Summit today. And everybody I talked to, I was just kind of blown away actually by the love and support that we got for Subnet Show. And being at a giant networking event with thousands of people, I was also able to talk to a lot of our desired guests in person. And we got a lot of verbal commitments that we will hopefully turn into full bookings in the near future. So it is the future of the Subnet Show is bright. Mm-hmm. and just, starting off, thank you to everybody that talked to me in Barcelona and said that you love the Subnet Show. I had no idea, how much love there was for this. So I'm coming back super motivated to make the show even better and put out some great content for you guys. So that's my rant for the start of the show.
Yeah, I agree. And we're definitely going to talk about the summit here in a second. I was going to basically mirror his statement. But before that, we'll introduce our guests. So there was a lot of news that came out of the summit. Of course, we introduced a new core wallet, and we're hopefully going to have Nick on here to deep dive a little bit more, although he did speak at the summit on that, and several other things, a bunch happening in GameFi and just so much. But one of the most exciting announcements, and something that's sort of been in the works for a couple of months now, and finally coming to fruition, is the addition of native Bitcoin support to the Avalanche Bridge. And so we've been wanting to have Michael back on the show for a while, and we've been kind of waiting for that announcement. So it'd be appropriate to talk about it. You guys may remember Michael was on a little bit a while ago, but that was one of the few episodes that Connor was unable to make it. So I've been wanting to get them on at the same time because I know Connor has a lot of really deep and fleshed out thoughts on how bridges impact, a multi-chain world. But let's welcome to the Subnet Show, Michael Kaplan. Michael is the creator of the Avalanche Bridge and the leader of the bridge team at Ava Labs. What is up, Michael?
Hey everyone, how's it going? Super happy to be back on. And definitely echo your statements about the summit. It was incredible to meet you both in person. I guess Connor and I had met once before, but incredible energy there. And it was just all around very exciting, not only to meet people we've been working with, but to meet people who have used our products, and the energy was just incredible. So yeah, excited to continue that now.
We can now give you the official title of a friend of the show, now that you're a multi-appearance.
Yes.
You're right up there with...
Am I the first
guest? No. So we have Justin from Penguin, Cryptofish, Steven, you...
Luigi.
And awesome. Luigi.
So yeah, that's the crew.
Good company.
Yeah, that's a good tribe. So yeah, I have a few points about the summit. So the first one I have here is community size and passion. So of course we kind of had like a prototype of the summit back in Lisbon, back in September and October. And my intuition building up to the summit was it was going to be, everything that Lisbon was and so much more. And I think that intuition proved true. And if I heard there were 4,000 people there, I don't know if that number is accurate or not, but I think that's probably pretty close. And of course, if there were 4,000 people that were there was 2 or 3 times more than that probably that were not there. And the only word I could think of the whole week that just kept coming to me, it's kind of loud here, so I can shut my window if I need to. The word that kept coming to me throughout the week was rewarding. Everybody on this call has certainly been putting in the hours over the last year or two. And just seeing where Avalanche has come in the past, 18 months or so since we've had our mainnet live is just, it's shocking and rewarding. And having everybody there and just getting all the love and seeing how many just super jazzed people there are, really, it gives me a lot of hope and faith in the future. I can't even imagine where we're going to be for next summit. And it just feels incredibly rewarding. All of those hours we've worked, all those late nights and weekends, all of the stress, all of the deadlines, all of the pressure, it really came to fruition with just an absolutely amazing event. So I want to kind of mirror what Connor said. It's been an eye-opener. That's the other kind of word I would use. It's been an eye-opener to me about how many people watch and get value out of the Subnet show. Just so many people came up to myself and Connor and were like, hey, dude, Subnet show, we love the Subnet show. And like he said, it's really inspiring. And when I get back to San Francisco, we really just want to take the quality and the quantity to the next level. And Connor did a great job networking and connecting with a bunch of the different teams. So we've got a bunch of people on the horizon. So you guys have any thoughts on that, the community and sort of just the summit in general? Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was incredibly rewarding to me personally. The whole week I was telling people, going back to picturing us in our small office room pre-COVID, which was pre-mainnet, and just kind of the grind we were on then. And as you said, just meeting everyone in person, then seeing what the Avalanche community has grown to is just extremely, extremely rewarding and energizing, frankly. It's one thing to interact with all these people on Twitter and on Discord and see the usage explode, but it's another thing to hang out with them in person and really get a sense of who they are and what our combined mission is and goals and dreams are. So it was just really, really cool to be all in the same place at the same time.
And I kept seeing, so go for it, Connor. Seems like you had something to say.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I have several takeaways that I'm planning on writing about on Twitter, but I just haven't been feeling well enough yet. But I think one of the big surprises for me, which I guess I should have expected this, but when we went to Lisbon, we were kind of piggybacking off of an Ethereum event that was there at the same time. And so many of the people who were coming to our tent who were super excited about Avalanche, but they were coming with questions. And they were coming saying that, we're not quite convinced. Can you tell us why you guys are special? Can you get us on board? And so when I was at Lisbon, I was selling the entire time. I was explaining, how things worked, why we were special. And I went into Barcelona with that same energy of like, this is what it's going to be. This is what my mindset is of like, this is like, I got to have all my pitches ready. But then when I arrived, I realized that everyone that was there was already a super fan. There was very few.
They were bringing
ideas
rather than questions. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's totally it. So I didn't have to convince anyone, tell anybody what Avalanche is. That's actually not true. With few exceptions, I really I didn't have to tell anyone. I got stuck with some influencers one point. It was amusing. It's a good story, but other than that, yeah, everybody was really, excited. They were talking about, how do we build subnets? Like, what's the future of GameFi going to be? But the kind of the de facto assumption that it was going to be on Avalanche, that this is where people wanted to be building. And that was just such a cool energy that I didn't expect. And I was expecting a lot of people would come here to be more cautiously, fact finding and doing more investigations. But no, it was a celebration as much as anything else. And it was so much fun.
And seeing the wide range of characters was also fun. Yeah, the engineers, the devs, the BD people, just the
Speaking of our BD team, this was a cool thing. I had probably met maybe 10 or 15 Avalabs employees in person before this event. And there were 70 of us there. And we got to see a lot of people in action. And it was so cool. And it was very impressive to me seeing the quality of our team. And, when you tag along with BD for a few minutes and get to listen to them make some of their pitches, and you're just like, oh man, some of these people are really good at their jobs.
Yeah, I had, believe it or not,
team as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I had never met Goon before. As crazy as that is, I wasn't a student at Cornell, and so I kept seeing him on the stage, and I didn't want to kind of bum rush him because he was definitely in full celebrity mode. You would see, a line of 30 people ready for the selfies, And then the very last night, I think the Saturday night before the Sunday hackathon morning, he sent me a DM and was like, "Are you still in Lisbon? I would love to connect." And I was like, "I am." Or in Barcelona, I would love to connect. And I was like, "Yeah, let's connect at the hackathon tomorrow." And so I saw him across the room and he ran over and gave me a hug. And Michael was sitting there and he was like, "Have you guys never met?" And we were like, "Not in person." And he goes, "Ah, I think I just witnessed history." It was a pretty cool, that was a pretty cool moment. And then there were other two, there's so many epic things worth mentioning, but two other ones I think that are worth mentioning are the Culture Catalyst Fund, which we announced with, I forget the VC partners. I apologize. If you guys know, please let me know. Do you guys remember who our VC partners are? If not, we
I
announced.
remember the VC, but Open is the our technical collaborator.
Got it, right. And then we announced, so I think it was $100 million Culture Catalyst Fund for artists and musicians and I think filmmakers to basically, you know, move those mediums and those industries into NFTs and onto the blockchain. And we announced a partnership with Grimes, who's releasing a child's book about the metaverse. That's absolutely huge, of course, because the music industry, I used to be a musician. I studied classical music in college and not even computer science. And, you know, the film industry and the music industry and the art industry are all just waiting to just have a total revolution and to put people in power of owning their assets and, you know, having artists make money. And I think it's going to be a catalyst, exactly what the name is. So I'm really, really excited about that. And then of course the hackathon, huge success. I travel to hackathons for my job. So I've been to dozens of them over the years. And I think that was the best one I've ever been to. I believe we had over $150,000 or more in prizes. I think at the end of the night, there were 50 some projects that were submitted, over 30 different subnet projects that were submitted. It really did just show how our tooling allows you, the subnet EVM and the subnet Clyde, these things allow you to spin up your own custom EVM in a minute or so and then just start tweaking on it. And that's pretty cool as well, because you know the barrier to entry into the Avalanche ecosystem can seem high because there's a lot of moving pieces and you know the technology is advanced. And it's cool to see that we've got the APIs at such a place now where you can kind of just spin up a subnet very quick and start tweaking on it. So that was very awesome. And there were some really good winners out of that, some incredibly high quality stuff to have come out just a weekend. And I know I've already been reached out to from different companies, I think 3 while I've been here, 3 big teams, which I won't say their names, but you guys would definitely know them, big Avalanche companies that were trying to connect with the hackathon winners. And so I think that, you know, it's going to be very rewarding for those teams. Not only did they win a non-trivial amount of money there, I get the feeling they're getting contacted by big players in our ecosystem to follow up in some way. I'm not sure, but absolute win on that hackathon and the Culture Catalyst. What do you guys think?
We gotta give a shout out to former Subnet show guest Anthony from the Encode Club for putting on the hackathon, because it was absolutely incredible. And he told me this was their first time doing an in-person hackathon, and so yeah, super impressed by everything that happened there. And I can't wait to see it when they fix the problems that they had. You know, it's an incredible event. The whole event team all week, you know, deserves the biggest shout out ever, because they're absolutely incredible. But yeah, I think I want to echo, we were super impressed by the hackathon entries, I think. And I also talked to some of the other sponsors who we did not judge personally, but you know, everybody was super impressed by the quality of the submissions, especially at the high end. And you know, we saw some really cool stuff. We saw Oracle EVM, we saw ZKIT.
We saw a C++, C++ custom VM, and ITAR, which is the creator of Avme, which is a suite of tools from distributed security, and they have a wallet and they have like an app store. And him and his team crunched out hard and create. And you know, I know a bunch of our devs all along the weekend were like, I don't think it's practical for you to get that across the finish line. And boy, he got it across the finish line and they finished. So massive props to him. I know when we announced that they won, he like broke out in tears of joy. And that was a pretty cool moment to see him so stoked.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. I was mostly impressed. Well, I was impressed on a lot of different fronts, but particularly impressed with the endurance. I know, like after a week of Summit, I was super mentally energized, but physically exhausted. So to see people like go right into the weekend and grind through the weekend on a hackathon was awesome to see. They really kept up the energy, and it was amazing to see the final results. Particularly, I thought the C++ VM was such a huge undertaking to kind of take on in that period of time, and it was really awesome to see the quality of all the submissions.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Covalent came from a hackathon win a couple of years ago. They announced that when they were announcing their prize, and that's pretty cool because they're a big team now, and I'm sure they got a big valuation, and they're making some serious moves across different chains. And so I feel like especially knowing that larger players are reaching out to some of these winners, it wouldn't surprise me at all if some of the teams, some of the winners are in fact big startups in a year from now. I mean, they won enough money where they can take the next 3 or 4 months off if they want, obviously, and continue the project. And now that they've got bigger players reaching out, it wouldn't surprise me at all if 2 or 3 or a handful of those guys and gals end up creating big startups from that. So I think I remember Ivan talking about this when we were doing the Morales hackathon. Web3, I don't know if you want to call that a Web3 hackathon, but sort of Web3 or crypto DeFi hackathons are really unique. I've been to so many different hackathons, and Web2 hackathons, you may get an iPad or something, but at a DeFi hackathon, you win 20,000 USD or something, and it's pretty cool. And so, yeah, that was just overall absolutely amazing. I've already seen people tossing around ideas for the next Avalanche Summit. There's multiple events that are in the works. I have a feeling it won't be a year before we all see each other, but I'm sure the next Avalanche Summit is going to be huge. I think Kevin said on Twitter, he thinks it'll be in Barcelona. Obviously, we can't project a year out. I think it'd be cool if we saw it in Tokyo or something like that. But what do you guys think of Barcelona? Is that your first time there?
Yeah, it was my first time actually on anywhere in the mainland of Europe. So that was exciting for me. Barcelona was awesome. I wish I had more time to explore around the city. So we got out and explored a little bit on Saturday, but for the most part was summit centric. So yeah, I'd love to go back or explore somewhere else.
Yeah, I had an amazing time there. I really enjoyed a lot of the food. By the end, I was a little tapased out and needed an entree again, but but yeah, no, it was absolutely incredible. My second time in the city. The first time I got to do all the tourist attractions, so I got to talk to a lot of people about when they were doing it for the first time. I was really excited for them, but I ended up doing mostly just work stuff the entire time. We did sneak out on Saturday a little bit, which was fun, and we did get one chance to sneak away to a couple tourist attractions, but other than that, it's a fantastic place to be. I would love to go back there, do another event there, but also I hope personally that we spread the wealth around the world a little bit, and because I know, especially our Asian community, it's a long way to go to visit us, and I know we have very strong communities in Asia that we'd like to also show some love to. So my personal vote would be Asia next year. I also haven't been to Asia. I'm going to do more traveling there, so maybe a little bit of bias. Or Germany. I also love Germany.
Yeah, I did.
Tokyo would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I've done 2 hackathons over there, and there's so many smart people, obviously. I mean, you can imagine smart people everywhere. Okay, so I think that's good. I know that Michael has a hard end in about half an hour, so I want to cut to the chase here and jump on over to the meat of the matter here, which is the Avalanche Bridge. So I have a couple bullet points that I pulled from the actual announcement on Medium, and then we'll deep dive into it. So basically, the Avalanche Bridge has now launched native Bitcoin support, and launched in July 2021. The Avalanche Bridge is the most popular Ethereum connected bridge by total value locked, exceeding $6 billion as of March 22nd. And since launch, it has been used for over 243,000 transactions. And of course, this article is 2 weeks old, so that number is old now. But 243,000 transactions to allow more than $43 billion US in ERC20 assets on Ethereum to be used on Avalanche. That is a staggering number. And the Avalanche Bridge will expand support for the Bitcoin network, enabling Bitcoin holders to securely transfer their BTC onto the Avalanche public blockchain and use it within Avalanche's DeFi ecosystem, which currently has 16 billion USD in TVL. So huge news. Michael, I think I'll just toss it over to you, and you can kind of give us, the high level, and we can approach it in whatever way you want. But just congratulations, first off. Huge, dude. Epic numbers. $43 billion. I mean, that's a big number, man.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, absolutely, especially only like 8 months out from the launch of the EVM bridge. So it's been super exciting and nerve-wracking, and it's a wild ride in the first 8 months. But yeah, the last few months we've been kind of heads down working to get the Bitcoin support ready to add to the Avalanche Bridge, and we were doing so in secret and in private. So it was very exciting to have that be announced and to be able to come on the show and talk about it. I know we knew about it beforehand, but I wanted to wait till the official announcement to really be able to dive into it. Yeah, on the Bitcoin front, I think it's just a tremendous opportunity for the Avalanche DeFi ecosystem as a whole, because there's not great traction for any Bitcoin bridges as is. So you have wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum, but that goes through BitCo, I believe, and it's a fully custodied KYC solution. So it's difficult for many people to access. And because Bitcoin doesn't have smart contracts on chain, obviously, it makes it relatively difficult to design any sort of distributed or secure bridge. And we really were in a unique position to be able to develop this because of our use of SGX technology in developing the first bridge. So much of the core of the Avalanche Bridge functionality occurs in this trusted execution environment off-chain. And because of that, we really are able to make the enclave behave as if it were a type of off-chain smart contract, is how we like to describe it to people. And since we're not limited to the EVM, we can really support any chain that we'd like. And Bitcoin was the obvious next choice after Ethereum because of all the value that's sitting there and is not able to access the DeFi applications and earn yield on it and really put it to use. So we think we should hopefully be seeing a big influx of Bitcoin onto Avalanche. And the symbol is going to be BTC.B, which I'm not sure if we have talked about that publicly yet, but all the current bridge tokens end in .E because they came over from Ethereum. So Bitcoin will be BTC.B. So it'll be very exciting to see.
So what were the technical challenges you had when moving to building on Bitcoin rather than building on Ethereum? Because in Ethereum, you're going EVM to EVM, but if you've never built on Bitcoin before, it's not actually it's not similar to Ethereum at all, really. It uses a model called UTXOs. The entire transaction logic is different. So I guess, like, what was hard about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll start with the first part, which is recovering the public key and using the same private key on both networks. So for the EVM, for the Avalanche Bridge from Ethereum to Avalanche, anyone who knows it will know that they use the same address on both networks. So you have your ERC20 in your MetaMask wallet on the Ethereum network. You go to bridge.avox.network, send a transaction on Ethereum. When your funds show up on Avalanche, all you have to do is go to the MetaMask dropdown, switch to the Avalanche network, and you still have your same address and everything. You can go from there since it's EVM to EVM. Bitcoin addresses obviously have a total different format, and they are not directly compatible with the EVM. But a key property of the bridge is that it uses the same wallet on both chains. So in this case, same wallet really means same private key. So the same private key will control your Bitcoin and control your BTC.B on Avalanche. And so to enable that, there was a couple technical challenges. One, how do you get the EVM address from a Bitcoin address, or more specifically from a signed Bitcoin transaction? And so the way we approach that, because obviously an address is a hash of a public key. So you can't go back to the public key from the address itself. But from a signed transaction, depending on the specific output type in Bitcoin, you can recover the public key and then convert that public key into an EVM address. And it's the case
pay to
that—
pub key hash. What is the output type? Pay to pub key hash?
Yeah, so it's going to, for all UTXOs sent to the bridge, are going to need to be pay to witness public key hash.
So it's got it. So it's Beg32 and it's got
right. But actually the public key that we're recovering is of the transaction before that, because we're looking at the inputs, the sender of the transaction to then wrap the funds back to that same wallet.
So it's SegWit, basically. It's the SegWit.
Yeah, we'll support SegWit, only SegWit transactions.
Yeah, I need to cut you off. Go for it.
Yep. Yeah. So that was one technical challenge on the back end of just recovering and deriving the correct address for the opposite network. But on the front end, that presented itself a huge challenge because most Bitcoin wallets are HD wallets and use any number of private keys, and all your inputs are from different addresses. So a single transaction might, even though it's from one wallet, it might have three inputs that seem like they're three different addresses. And you wouldn't want to wrap the funds to three different addresses on Avalanche, because then you're on three different EVM accounts. You would need to put some AVAX in each of those accounts to pay for gas. And so what we did actually is we are implementing our own Bitcoin wallet within Core, the wallet that's going to be launching in the next few weeks here. So yeah, with Core, you will have your own Bitcoin wallet, and it's a single address wallet, not an HD wallet, which will be interesting to see how the community feels about that. I think some Bitcoin maxis might be upset because you think you really need to use an HD wallet for privacy and security, but we feel comfortable in the assumptions that we're making there. So the only wallet that's going to be supported on the Bitcoin Bridge UI is the Core wallet. And that way we know that all transfers to the enclave address are coming from a single address. Well, all transactions in are from a single address, and we're able to recover the public key of that address and then derive the corresponding EVM address to send the wrapped funds on Avalanche.
Got it. And what do we expect the UX to be like? I know currently when you're sending stuff over from Ethereum to Avalanche, I think we wait 30 or 35 blocks or something on Ethereum. And you've got the great UI that shows kind of how slow it is on Ethereum. And then it's sort of like instant on Avalanche. What will the UX be like coming from Bitcoin?
Yeah, it'll hopefully be as smooth, possibly a little bit slower though. So we've actually had some discussions internally of exactly how many confirmations to require on Bitcoin. And we decided to go the safe route of the traditional assumption of 6 confirmations is good on Bitcoin. I know many centralized exchanges have gone down to 3, but to start off, we definitely want to err on the side of being more conservative when we're talking about confirmations here. So it might take up to an hour or more to get those 6 Bitcoin confirmations. But Nick came up with a very clever design. We're able to minimize your transfer, so you can still see it and it shows up in pending with a little notification, but you don't have to keep it active on your screen the whole time. So it should be a really smooth experience, hopefully.
Got it. So to give a little insight there, in Nakamoto consensus, of course, we're talking about stacking blocks. There's a block height. And traditionally in Bitcoin, there actually used to be something called zero confirmation. It goes way back in the day, where it's kind of like a sliding scale of how much you would be willing to accept, even less than 1 confirmation. It's re-enabled, I know, in Bitcoin Cash and a bunch of other derivatives, but the BTC chain introduced something called replace by fee, I believe is what it's called, where because the blocks were full, so you can basically reissue a transaction and pay a higher fee or something like that. I forget kind of the way it works, but so zero confirmation doesn't work on Bitcoin. So now in the actual Bitcoin BTC land, you're suggested to wait 6 blocks, which roughly 10 minutes in this sort of Poisson distribution. So it's not even always 10 minutes. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's a little less, but in theory, you're supposed to wait 6 blocks, an hour, before you're confident that there's not going to be a reorg attack and your blocks aren't going to shift out from under you. And I've been in Bitcoin for years, and that to me was always one of the bottlenecks that prevented mainstream adoption, because that's not how merchants think. Obviously, when you go to buy the sort of cliche coffee with your Bitcoin and then say to the merchant, you got to wait an hour before, even though merchants are used to chargebacks are a credit card thing, but chargebacks are not a crypto thing. So asking merchants to wait an hour has always been a weird bottleneck to me. And so whenever I found out about Avalanche Consensus in 2018, when I was in Milan at a Bitcoin Cash Summit, and Goon and Kevin woke up at 5 a.m. Ithaca time and gave us a presentation on Avalanche Consensus, that was the thing I immediately got. I understood sort of like 4,500 transactions per second, but the sub-second immutable, irreversible finality is just such a win. When you're coming from a world where you've got to wait an hour to where you're less than a second and there's no such thing as a reorg, that was one of the very first things when the light bulb went off above my head. And so yeah, waiting 6 blocks, that doesn't surprise me because that's the industry standard.
Anybody who doesn't believe Avalanche is the future should just try using Bitcoin. what I would suggest of, I started my very first crypto project that I did back in 2014 was building on Bitcoin. And yeah, like it was impossible at the time. Just like whenever you make a transaction, you have to wait 10 minutes before it could possibly show up in a block at the earliest. And yeah, 10 minutes is a long time in developer land. So if you're just testing something, especially back then, there weren't any like simulators or things that you could use to smooth out the build process. I was testing on testnet. So it made the process of developing incredibly slow. And yeah, like I said, people can't wait an hour for their money to transfer for any practical use case. For like totally asynchronous things where neither party really cares about speed, then yes. But how many times does neither party care about speed in the real world? Not very many.
Yeah, it was a funny moment when we deployed the Bitcoin bridge to testnet for the first time. And so we'd done pretty extensive local testing using reg test networks where blocks pop up every 5 seconds because it's just proof of authority. And so we're super excited. We finally, like at the end of this long call, cleared a number of hurdles, solved a number of issues, like first time hiccups. And they're like, all right, let's do a transfer. And we sent a testnet transaction. And we set the confirmation depth to only 2 actually on testnet because it's all, of course, no real value there. And we still had to wait for 20 minutes. And so we were sitting at the end of the call, like just waiting kind of at the end of the day to get a W. And it eventually went through.
And because it's not even a hard 10 minutes. It's like sometimes I've seen blocks take an hour for one block. You know what I mean? So then you're waiting an hour and 50 minutes or something. It's brutal sometimes.
Or if there's a spike in traffic, you might not have been included in the block. So yeah. So the reason, I wanted to just highlight this really quickly, just so this isn't really an Avalanche specific problem. So I wanted to just kind of explain to anybody who isn't super familiar with the Bitcoin and Ethereum worlds. So basically when you're layering blocks on top of each other, you might have heard the term reorg. So a reorg is basically what happens when in Bitcoin consensus or in Nakamoto consensus, the rule is that the longest chain is the definitive version of history. And so whenever I have a chain, if my block is in a chain that's 100 blocks long, if somebody else comes along with another chain that's 101 blocks long, but doesn't have my transaction in it, that 101 block chain will become the new definitive record of history, and my transaction will no longer be accepted. So what you're really waiting for, the reason you have these long wait times, is you're trying to make sure that the likelihood of somebody having a longer chain than you that does not include your block is essentially 0. And so in Bitcoin, the 99% threshold for that is 6 blocks, just based on the standard, variability of the network distribution kind of parameters. Ethereum, it's I think 15 blocks, but blocks are issued at a much faster rate, so their time to finality is significantly faster. But on Avalanche, we don't have this concept of reorgs. It's something that's removed by the consensus protocol. Whenever a decision is made in Avalanche, that decision is final and irreversible. So that's why we can have such fast finality relative to these other chains.
And so
it's actually
go for it.
Also perfectly exemplified by when you transfer across the bridge from Avalanche back to Ethereum. It actually happens much faster than moving from Ethereum to Avalanche, because once that transaction is finalized, we don't need to wait for any more confirmations. So we just need to wait for one confirmation on Avalanche because there's no chance of a reorg there. And that's why moving Avalanche to Ethereum is faster on the bridge.
And so what are the sort of next steps? I guess obviously making go live, but what are next steps from where you're sitting?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are currently actually onboarding a few new Warden partners. So we haven't talked about wardens yet on this call. I think we might have talked about them on the last show. So the wardens are what tell the enclave about the state of each respective blockchain. And on the Ethereum bridge, currently, you need 3 or 4 wardens to agree or to approve a transfer in order for the enclave to take action and process that transfer. And that's how we kind of distribute the trust a bit. No single warden can push through a transaction on their own. But we're looking to expand that set to, one, improve the security, but also the reliability of the bridge. So we're adding a few new warden partners there, and the Bitcoin bridge is going to be a 6 of 8 deployment rather than 3 of 4, which we're super excited about. And I don't think it's public who the new partners are yet, but it certainly will be at time of launch. So we're working with them to get their deployment set up and all ready to go.
Got it. So the reason that I had wanted to make sure to get you guys back onto the show together is because I know in the past Connor has done a couple of deep dives on his thoughts of the idea that bridges are sort of the biggest risk vector in this kind of cross-chain world that we're living in. And so I wanted to get you guys both to kind of give your thoughts there. So Connor, can you kind of give us your high level there, what you're thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that we've kind of really seen over the last few years of when Ethereum came out, everybody built their applications on Ethereum. So all the tokens on Ethereum are native for the most part. So when Aave released their governance token, it's on Ethereum. When USDT and USDC launched their first implementations, they were on Ethereum. But now when Avalanche first started, our first effort to bring existing projects over was to try to let people use the tokens that they already knew and loved on Avalanche, because there wasn't a huge number of native projects. Now there are, it's not as important, but at the beginning stages of our project, we had to bring over tokens from Ethereum. And so bridges are necessary to get these tokens from one network to the other. And the problem is bridges have the capability to effectively mint anything they want on the destination chain. And they also have to hold collateral on the source chain. So there's kind of like 2 big attack vectors against bridges. Or 1, they could have their collateral stolen, or 2, they could mint more tokens than they have collateral for. And then you kind of, the bridge token will break the peg and it won't be worth, what it says it's worth. If I have 1 USDT.E on Avalanche should be worth 1 USDT on Ethereum. And so if your bridge is designed poorly, or if it's centralized and the operators decide to stage a rug pull, they could potentially steal all of the collateral funds. Or it turns out that the infinite minting bug is actually a lot worse than the stealing the collateral, because not only can you use the infinite minting to steal all the collateral, you can also steal all of the money in DeFi that's set up against these pools. So for example, in a DEX like Pangolin or Trader Joe, you have liquidity pools that allow you to trade that balance AVAX and USDT.E. So if you can mint an infinite number of USDT.E, you can actually use that to steal all of the AVAX that's in the AVAX USDT.E pool. So let's say if there's $1 million of tokens on of collateral, if I could steal all that $1 million, and then I could also use that to steal another $1 million of AVAX, or however much AVAX there is on the Avalanche side as well. So you can actually steal more than just what's in the bridge. And so that's just a huge ecosystem risk for the for the entire Avalanche ecosystem. Every ecosystem that is using these bridges, that needs to use these bridges to really exist and be functional. And we've seen some really high profile attacks in recent weeks. The Solana wormhole bridge had a $300 million vulnerability that was exploited a few weeks ago. And then just last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, Ronin, the Axie Infinity bridge, was exploited for 600 million, I think, which basically stole that entire network's liquidity. So these are hugely damaging attacks. That just they're high risk, high reward, where these are probably the largest attacks that are possible in DeFi right now. Because especially when you hear that the Avalanche Bridge has 6 billion TVL or something like that, if somebody was able to find a critical flaw in the Avalanche Bridge, they could take that entire 6 billion of collateral and then maybe also another 6 billion of AVAX or of native tokens as well. So it's something that is incredibly challenging and probably keeps Michael up at night, I'm sure.
It definitely keeps me up at night. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's super interesting and super nerve-wracking space, part of the crypto space really to be working in terms of cross-chain interoperability and bridges. I think there are so many different aspects to a bridge's security that often don't even get considered by the end users or even by the developers for that matter. Because on one hand, there's the theoretical security model of a bridge, right? So our bridge uses SGX. It's currently in a 3 of 4 deployment setting. So you're trusting that 3 of 4 of these established companies aren't going to collude. Sure, some people say that's not enough, which obviously the more the better in terms of security there. And then some people say, why have a closed set at all? Like, let's have an open bridge validator. And I know there are multiple different projects working on this problem to have an open like proof of stake bridge, basically, where anyone can become a validator of the cross-chain transfers. So that's kind of the theoretical part of it. And I think that gets a lot of focus. But that's actually not where most of the exploits have occurred. So for the wormhole Solana attack, I believe it was a bug in a smart contract that was exploitable by just broadcasting a transaction on chain to exploit how that contract interacts with the data that is provided. And I think there's been a couple of those where it's not actually a flaw in the security model of the theoretical security model of the bridge, but a flaw in the smart contract implementation of the bridge. So it's very difficult to get the theoretical model right in practice. And then in the case of Ronin, it also wasn't a smart contract issue. It wasn't a theoretical issue. No one was actively colluding, but it was kind of a Web 2 security issue, right? They had their bridge validators, essentially, I'm not sure what they call them, maybe relayers, were compromised by having some endpoint be accessible that shouldn't be accessible, that allowed the attacker to have the bridge validators sign a transaction for them that they shouldn't have been signing. And so none of the relayers there were colluding. It wasn't breakdown in that trust model, but it was a breakdown in, okay, what if 3 or 4 of these are compromised just on a typical, operational security level, then you can get some bad results. So there's so many parts of bridge security that we always are thinking about, not only increasing the 3 or 4 wardens to 6 of 8, but how do we make sure the wardens are secure, the ones that we do have? How do we improve that security? How do we lock down the SGX enclave as much as possible? How do we make it as transparent as possible while not giving away, business secrets or our competitive edge? So I think there's just so many different angles to bridge security, and there's so much that goes into it that really makes it a difficult problem. And at the end of the day, the bridge is no more secure than the team building it and the security of its infrastructure properties. So yeah, it's a lot to lock down for sure.
Yeah, so this probably might be an oversimplification. So it seems to me like there's a few different things here. So there's obviously the security model, the theoretical security model being sound. And then I'm guessing there is code auditing by a professional company, which I would do. And then there's probably bug bounties, which I'm presuming. So for, hackers who see something, who don't want to be malicious and want to be a white hat or a gray hat. And then there is also, I guess, like you said, increasing the pool of wardens from 3 of 4 to 6 of 8. And I don't know if I missed anything there, but it probably seems like those 4 points: having a good sound security model to begin with, having the code audited, allowing white hat hackers to then do their thing, and then also just having it distributed amongst as many legit companies as possible.
I think the infrastructure itself, the security of that is also should be added. Yeah, so we, for instance, have constant security scans running of all of the Warden deployments, making sure that no endpoints are accessible that shouldn't be accessible, making sure that all of the different certificates along the way are correct, adding HMAC signatures for extra verification of requests and responses. So all of these kind of traditional security approaches at the infrastructure level, I think, are also very important.
And how big is your team right now?
We are rapidly growing. So we have, I think, a team of 5 or 6 backend engineers. That's not including DevOps, who also does a tremendous job in supporting our infrastructure. We were talking about it. So yeah, we've since the last time we talked, I think we added 4 new engineers on the Bridge team, which is super exciting to see. We actually just passed the 1-year anniversary of when we came up with this bridge design. So it was a fun time to look back at the year that was. I remember messaging Goon. It was on Easter 2021. I was like, "Happy Easter. We have a new idea for how to design a bridge that we think could be a big breakthrough. Let me know when you're free to talk about it." And I really wish it wasn't sent on Signal, because it disappeared the week later. And now I wish I had taken a screenshot of it or something. But yeah, that was April 4th, 2021. So now that we have a full team, I think we're very excited for what the future holds.
So is the team full, or are you looking to hire anybody else? Or are you guys full at capacity right now?
I don't think we have any active openings that I'm aware of, but we're always hiring, I think. So
Sure.
definitely, please apply. Anyone who's listening to this who sounds interested, we'd be more than happy to talk to you, and I'm sure we can find a role for you.
Yeah, in general, Avalabs is always hiring. Pretty much regardless of skill set. So yeah, if you are interested, definitely reach out to our website. We should drop some affiliate links with our referral codes in the in the description.
Yeah, I always say we work in the unique field of being a super user is sort of a unique job in that it doesn't matter what your gender is, it doesn't matter what your age is, it doesn't matter how much money you have or who your parents are, or where you're from. All that matters is if you really have the skills to be able to kind of excel in this world. And it moves very fast and it's highly technical. There's a lot of deadlines, there's a lot of pressure. But it's incredibly rewarding, and you get to work with the smartest people in the world. So what I always say is kind of like, there's always room at the table for another super user if a person is really amazing. There's always room on my team, certainly, and there's always room on Avalanche. So yeah, I would echo the same sentiment. If you're out there and this is the kind of stuff you're vibing on, I'm sure there's a team at Avalanche who could use. So please reach out to us. I believe it's avalabs.org/team or teams. We have a list of all of our job openings, and we're hiring across the board, from biz dev to marketing to engineering to product to everything. So I know Michael has a hard stop in 7 minutes. So I think maybe we can just pass the mic around and get some last minute thoughts. Michael, last minute thoughts, shout outs, anything?
Yeah, actually, I think I can stay a bit longer now. I just was informed the meeting was postponed. So, but yeah, I think one other technical challenge, if you guys want to get back into that real quick, of the Bitcoin bridge, I would love to talk about how the Enclave manages its UTXO set, which is unique to Bitcoin, obviously, because in the EVM to EVM bridge, you just have the count model on both chains. And when someone unwraps their tokens from Avalanche back to Ethereum, all the Enclave has to do is sign a transaction from its Ethereum account to transfer those tokens. And it knows that it should have that amount of tokens available, of course. But in Bitcoin, that's really not the case, because you need to construct transactions by consuming UTXOs and producing new outputs. So it's difficult because all of the wardens need to stay in sync about which UTXOs are available for the enclave to spend. And you need to make sure to manage the fee correctly, so that the transaction fee that's paid to the miners in that sense needs to be within the right range. And then you need to also consume, when you consume an input, you have to consume all of it. So if you have unwrapped 8 Bitcoin and we have 2 UTXOs of 5 each, then not only do we need to send Gabriel 8 Bitcoin, we need to send 2 Bitcoin back to the enclave itself. So it was a very unique challenge there of the approach we took actually was having a single warden propose which UTXOs to spend, and then validating with all wardens that those are valid UTXOs that the enclave owns and that haven't been spent yet. So that's a bit of a different communication pattern than the EVM bridge. Happy to discuss more there, but yeah, I think there's a lot of technical challenges with the Bitcoin bridge. We're not going to be able to hash them all out. But
do we prioritize getting it into the very next Bitcoin block, and how do you do the fee management there?
Yeah, great question. So we do prioritize getting it into the next block by checking what the current fee rate is in the Bitcoin network and rounding up a bit. And the fee is paid per byte, which makes it very interesting because if you have more inputs, the transaction is larger, which means you need to have a higher transaction fee. And of course, when you unwrap from Avalanche, you don't know which UTXOs are going to be spent. So if the bridge ends up spending a bunch of small UTXOs to fulfill your unwrap request, you might end up, or you would hypothetically have ended up paying a higher bridge fee to cover that Bitcoin transaction fee. But what we do actually, the approach that we took is that we publish an estimate fee depending on the average size of the UTXOs held by the enclave. And we have a function that maps basically, okay, if you're unwrapping X amount of Bitcoin, given the average UTXO size on the enclave, we expect that to require a certain number of UTXOs. And from the number of UTXOs, you can determine the size of the expected transaction and then the expected transaction fee. And so that's how we smoothed out that user experience, so it's a more predictable fee model. The fee rate is pulled in from the wardens to the enclave, as well as the UTXO statistics of how many and the average size controlled by the enclave. So yeah, we're super excited to see it in action. It's something we've been playing around with and trying to get just so, and I think hopefully it will result in a good user experience.
And I know that, I don't know exactly the dynamics of how this played out, but we fired up, we had an old school bridge, which I believe was built with chain bridge technology, and then of course now we have the new bridge. And we just discussed there's been $46 billion worth of assets, which have, I guess, moved from Ethereum to Avalanche. I don't know if that's a bi-directional relationship or if that's 46 billion that have come over from Ethereum. But as you mentioned in the beginning, DeFi is not a native sort of paradigm in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And there's so much value in Bitcoin. It's still #1 by market cap, obviously. So there's the potential for a lot of, $46 billion could seem small compared to the amount of assets that could move over. Now, sort of traditionally, kind of maybe the Bitcoin maxi mindset has been not so into DeFi, but DeFi is such a powerful paradigm and people want to put their assets, to work for them and to earn yield. That alone will attract people. Just the opportunity to make money, people will get into it, whether they dig it at some philosophical level or not. I don't know if we have an amazing marketing team and an amazing business development team. I'm not sure what the dynamics were. I know we had Avalanche Rush, which I don't know how that played into the bridge, but are there initiatives or is there outreach into the Bitcoin ecosystem? Like, what do we expect? How fast are things going to start moving over? Or do we not know?
In terms of how fast, I think that's something that we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I could take a guess, but it would be truly just a guess. I know we have multiple teams doing a tremendous job of making sure that the BTC.B token will be incentivized in different dApps in the Avalanche ecosystem and such. but it's definitely a game of kind of building up enough liquidity that it's attractive to move your assets over, because you don't want to be the first one to come over to Avalanche, because then there's no liquidity of BTC.B. So I don't know all of the details of how we're going to drive that adoption, but I know it's many people are working on it behind the scenes. Yeah,
And
Connor, I'm not sure if you have any additional thoughts there.
yeah,
No, but yeah, I mean, I think that's that you actually can get some very juicy yields usually if you're one of the first people to participate in these things. A lot of these incentive programs that have fixed emissions, and so if there's fewer people participating, you can get some turbo rewards if you can be one of the first few people to get into these programs. And so I definitely, way back in the day, that was something that a lot of people were trying to take advantage of with Pangolin when some of the rewards were switching. So you could go in and try to, if you're there in the first minute or two, you might be, 10% of all of the money in there. So you earn 10% of all the emitted rewards per second, which most people like me do not have enough money to sustainably have 10% of the entire liquidity pool over time, more like 0.001% or whatever.
I'm chuckling also because way back in the day, like you said, is what, 14 months ago now?
Oh yeah, I was at least 14 years younger back then.
was this your first time working with UTXOs, Michael?
No, actually. So also at the summit, there was a different announcement about Enclave Markets, which is an exchange that's being built by a team associated with Avalabs, but not Avalabs itself. And I used to work on that project. So it's actually very exciting to see that be made public. Also, I spent over a year working on that before the bridge. That was my first time really digging in and understanding UTXO model for processing deposits and withdrawals from an exchange.
And do you have a preference in the way you think? Do you like account or UTXO, or do you care?
I like the account model better. I have to say, I can fully understand the benefits of UTXOs, and it's a really nice abstraction, but it's just so difficult to work with from a developer's perspective. In order to achieve the same level of clean user experience, I think it just makes it a lot more difficult. So yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to each, but personally, I have found the account model easier to think about and easier to build.
Especially when you add into the mix these hierarchical deterministic wallets, these HD wallets, which allow you to basically create these tree-like structures, which can be like, I believe you can have 4 billion children at each level, 2 billion of which are hardened and 2 billion of which are not. So you can create these nearly infinitely deep nested tree structures that get really hard to think about. And so you have BIP44, which was, I think first was BIP39 was mnemonics. So you could take entropy and deterministically recreate this key pair. And then after that, you had BIP32, which is like the beginning of HD wallets. And then BIP44 kind of brought sanity by creating this string, which is like a path. And when I joined Avalabs, so I joined Avalabs, I'm almost at my 2-year mark. I believe May is 2 years for me. And so I joined before we did we raised capital and before we even launched our initial wallet. And so when I very first joined the team, I was sort of digging through all the tech and figuring out how I could contribute, because I didn't want to add drag to the team. I knew I needed to add lift and acceleration to the team. So I was like, I know a lot about UTXOs and HD wallets. I've done a lot of Bitcoin stuff. And so I was looking at our wallet, and we didn't have any HD stuff at all. We didn't have any mnemonics. If you guys remember, we were using like this key store JSON file or something was the original thing. And so I remember there's this great book by Andreas Antonopoulos called The Bitcoin Book, which is, like sort of like the canonical source of all truth in the Bitcoin ecosystem. We've referred to it a million times in my journey at Avalabs, building out the X chain and the wallet. And so I remember bringing it's chapter 5 in version 2 of the Bitcoin book. It's all online for free. Go check it out. And I remember I brought it to the team. When I first joined, we had meetings you guys were there. We had meetings 7 days a week. and Goon and Kevin used to run them. So they were super, super hands-on in the beginning. And I remember raising it one morning, kind of being like, you know, we don't do mnemonics, which we need to do, and we don't do HD wallets. We're not generating a new address for every single change transaction and every transaction. And I remember at the beginning, there were multiple people who shall remain nameless, but you know, the players in the company were like, we're not doing that. And Goon was like, yeah, we are. That's the way it works in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And I was like, Goon for the win. And so we had to implement HD wallets. And it really is a lot to think about. You create literally a new address for every single transaction. Compare that to the account model where you just kind of have one address and it could be contract owned or externally owned, but it's just a lot easier to reason about not having to come up with a new address. And in theory, you know, you get some security benefits about creating these HD wallet type structures. So obviously there's a reason people do it, but there's no question about it. It's a lot to wrap your mind around. And if you're a total noob and entering the ecosystem and you're trying to wrap your mind around what addresses are and what key pairs are, there's a lot to learn. And then trying to introduce somebody to a new random string of, you know, letters and numbers every single time they do a transaction is very, very confusing. And then I have, in my career, I've helped work on 5 wallets, right? So I've done 5 HD wallets going all the way back to Bitcoin. And I worked on several in the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem. And I understand in the same way that I understood Avalanche consensus immediately because I knew the bottlenecks of Nakamoto consensus, having worked with it for years. I understand the need for BIP44 because every single time a team implements an HD wallet, they want to implement their own HD path. And so all of a sudden, there's no interoperability between wallets. And interoperability is what will allow us to reach to get as big as the web and beyond, right? Interoperability is really the play. That's why standards are so important, right? And so time and time again, I have seen companies come into the space, implement an HD wallet, and then want to do their own crazy HD path. And I've got to have some talk with their engineers and try and sell them on this BIP44 thing. And it was the same thing at all the labs. I had to like, this is the problem, this is the solution. And so I understand BIP44 really, really intensely. And it's just a brilliant, brilliant solution to the problem of having these infinitely nested HD wallets. But if I remember correctly, you can create like, I honestly believe it's 2 to the 513 different key pairs from a single source of entropy and a mnemonic. I believe it's like 2 orders of magnitude less than every atom in the universe, if you can actually believe that. It's that astronomical. It's crazy. Granted, there's going to be a birthday attack or something at some point, but the numbers are really staggering. I'm breaking up. I don't know. It seems a little jumpy on my side, so let me know if I break up. Connor?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. But I think we should probably wrap things up. We're getting a little long, so
Yeah, okay.
yes. So I'll just I know you like to throw it around, so I'll just say my closing thoughts. But yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for coming out. Bitcoin Bridge. We're not throwing a release date on it yet, but it's going to be pretty soon, and you know we're really excited to have it out in the world so that you know you could go talk to people about it in Barcelona. Thankfully, we announced it on the first day of the conference so that you could have the rest of the week to talk about it. I think we saw that it got a lot of love during the announcement. That was, I think, the thing people cheered most for. So we know the community is really excited about it, and you know we can't wait to put it out in the world. So yeah, no, that's it for me. Hopefully, I will be totally recovered for our next episode. We got some good ones coming up. Yeah, there's, I guess, the one other piece of news we absolutely have to shout out just before we go. DeFi Kingdom subnet launch on Avalanche has been going amazingly. Krabata announced that they are going to postpone their subnet launch a little bit, but that's going to be coming in the very near future. Subnets are happening. You know, there are multiple people who announced that they're building them, that they're going to be releasing imminently even. And 2022, year of the subnet, and you'll hear about it all here on Subnet Show.
Yeah, absolutely. The subnets we barely talked on them, but they're I think the biggest topic, the biggest buzz at the summit. So it's super exciting to see. And yeah, thank you both for having me on again. It's been a pleasure to come back and talk about all the tech that we're building. And thank you also for the contributions to the space that you make, not just technical, but building the community through this show and live in person was awesome to see. It's been a hell of a ride. So yeah, can't wait for it to continue.
Yeah, thanks, man. It really has been an amazing journey, and we're just getting started. So, yeah, I will be back. I have one more day in Rome. I fly out to San Francisco on Saturday. I'll be back starting Monday. It's been cool. I've been traveling across Europe with my mom. Reconnecting with her is great, but I've missed my son. And yes, I have missed being deep diving on Avalanche every day. Even being checked out for 2 weeks, things move so quickly. Just since the summit, DeFi Kingdom launched, and they had $1 billion market cap for one moment. I think it's down now, but still, I mean, they were doing 3 or 4 transactions a second. And so it just shows that 100 million transactions that we just hit recently on the C chain, that number is going to explode. I think Connor said 1 billion in less than a year, and I think that's totally accurate. So yeah, it's been a great journey, and I'm looking forward to getting back to San Francisco and getting back into the flow. So I'll be back full time on Monday. So yeah, thanks everybody for if you made it this far, obviously you're a champion. Thanks again to everybody who introduced themselves at the summit. It's incredibly rewarding to actually put a face to so many different DeFi anons online. That was pretty cool. And yeah, as I said, we'll be back next week with another great guest at the same time, same bat channel. So as always, from Snowflake to Avalanche and through consensus to the stars. Thank you, everybody. Peace.